Alopecia, it's a type of hair loss, often severe hair loss. High-profile people like Representative Ayanna Pressley and actor Jada Pinkett Smith have really brought it to the forefront. And while alopecia affects more than 300,000 people in the U.S. every year, including myself, there's still no cure for it. We recently spoke with two local women struggling with alopecia and a doctor working to help them and so many others.
I'd lost hair here, here, some in the back. I'd started losing here. To see patches made me think, well, what's wrong with me? What's going on with me physically?
Just before turning 50, Shauna Edge's struggle with hair loss began.
Your hair is something you take for granted until you don't have it.
Her journey with alopecia started 7 years ago, before she knew she had the autoimmune disorder.
Alopecia is the medical term for hair loss. And this is where you had your flare-up.
Dermatologist Dr. Carolyn Robinson specializes in treating this condition.
Over 50% of men and women will experience some form of hair loss in their lifetime. Most people don't know this, but there's over 27 different forms of alopecia.
They can range from losing hair in patches to only on the crown of the head, or sometimes total hair loss.
I would like to take a look at your scalp.
Tanya Scardina told us what she noticed first.
The brittleness was with the hair. My scalp, it was like some tenderness. As time went on, I just noticed more thinning within the center of the scalp as it further out around the side of the crown, and was trying to do self-help as opposed to trying to find professional help.
Like so many, Tanya tried hair growth products. She tried to cover up the bald spots.
We'll be in Suite 8 today.
And then eventually went to several doctors before finding real help with Dr. Robinson.
Scalp is looking great. Hair is not a cosmetic issue. I think there's a huge misconception that, just cover it up, it's fine. But it can impact how you move through the world.
In my mind, it was very life-limiting to know that I'd lost so much hair. And I think, the process of trying to cover up all the bald spots, and I hope the wind doesn't blow, at some point was just like, there was just no way. I was going to have to figure out wigs, that I was going to have to shift my lifestyle. What if I want to go to the pool with my daughter? How does that work with a wig?
Shauna also turned to Dr. Robinson for a comprehensive treatment plan for her alopecia, from a shampoo to topicals, injections, and vitamins.
It's been a process to regrow my hair. We've had a lot of success.
While some forms of alopecia are treatable, there is no cure, and until recently, treatments were experimental. But last June, the FDA approved a first-of-its-kind treatment for alopecia, a pill called Olumiant.
But what this medication does is it interferes with that so that immune response is dampened and that the hair does not shed. So it's really helpful.
But Dr. Robinson said there is still a lot we do not know about alopecia.
I'm hopeful that we can get more research, more innovation in the treatments for hair loss, more options for our patients.
So more people like Tanya and Shauna can find help for their hair loss and maybe some success with the right treatments.
I've gotten to a point where I'm living with it in a way that I'm way more comfortable.
What would you say to other women who might be noticing something different that just seems off?
You can improve. You can get the assistance that you need, that you don't necessarily have to have that hair loss and have it progress.
And there's so much more to talk about with this. Coming up, dermatologist Dr. Carolyn Robinson will join us live in studio here to tell us more about alopecia, some of the pitfalls that patients face when it comes to treatments, insurance, and more. We'll have that right after this break. Welcome back. Before the break, we told you about two women's struggles with alopecia, a form of hair loss that can be severe and it can be life-changing. Joining us now, Dr. Carolyn Robinson of the Tone Dermatology in the South Loop. Good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here. Years ago, I went to Dr. Robinson because I had CCCA, a very common form of alopecia among Black women, and you started a treatment plan. Can you talk about some of the treatments that are out there for alopecia?
Absolutely. There's a wide variety. Right now, we have topicals, which we saw covered. We have injectables, which are primarily in office, and they can include anything from steroids to something called PRP, platelet-rich plasma, which is a rejuvenative procedure. We also now have oral therapies available depending on the type of alopecia that you have. So oftentimes when patients come in, I walk them through the different treatment options and we come up with a plan that's specific to their type of hair loss.
Okay, and one of the treatments that you just mentioned, and this is actually me right here on camera right now. This is my alopecia. This was the time of my life that I went to Dr. Robinson years ago. you talked about treatments. One of the things is the injections that you mentioned, and insurance.
Yeah.
That's a big issue. Can you talk about just the hurdles that you've seen?
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize this, but with research, with innovation, even though steroid injections are the standard of care for alopecia, for certain types of alopecia, we need more research and innovation so that we can get those approvals and coverage with insurance. It's kind of lags behind. So with in-office procedures, I find that a lot of patients face some challenges getting their insurance to approve it, even though it is the standard of care.
Okay, and one of the things that we've always known is that especially as Black women, you go to your hairdresser, and that's the person who's seeing your scalp. Can you talk about just the necessity for stylists to know how to spot this?
It's so important, and I get a range of patients. Sometimes they say my stylist found this and that's why I'm here, and other times they're not quite as educated about the changes that are happening in their scalp. So I think that partnering with hairstylists is going to be huge and pivotal, because the awareness that dermatologists do treat hair loss still hasn't quite reached the public.
And in the piece, we talked about 27 different types of alopecia,
Yes.
which I was surprised to know. But there are some that have been very brought to the forefront because they've
Yes.
been more common. What are those?
I think right now, alopecia areata, because there's a lot of research going on in this particular condition. So this is a condition where you can get smooth, round patches of hair loss on the scalp. Sometimes it's a few patches. Sometimes it can even be the entire scalp or hair loss on the entire body. And so this takes a huge, as you can imagine, toll on people's mental health, on their lives, and it's something that we had not had a lot of treatment options for in the past. So one of the newer therapies approved last June is specifically for alopecia areata, and there are a few more therapies in the pipeline. So this is an exciting time.
Yeah, it's so good to hear that, because for so long, people who have alopecia didn't know where to turn, or there's not a solution for this.
Exactly. Yeah, there's not a cure right now, but I think that the hopeful thing is that with more attention, like what we're doing right now, bringing this to the forefront, more conversations, more research, that we can get those treatments that we need.
Yeah, I hope so. Dr. Carolyn Robinson with Tone Dermatology, thanks for sharing so much important information with us.
Thanks for having me.